thank you for coming today. My name is Madar Siyum, and I am with Colorado Registration for Voting Office. And I would like to invite you to go out and vote at any chance that you get. And the upcoming primaries are coming, but then there's the 2020 election. So I wanted to give you guys the information on what to vote on, how to vote, and how to proceed for that. Now, I want to start by saying a quote from Abraham Lincoln, who said, "The ballot is stronger than a bullet." So, our founding fathers really made sure that democracy was maintained by having the people's vote onto who is going to represent in Congress or any government offices. And another quote from Franklin Roosevelt says, "Nobody will ever deprive of the American people of the right to vote, except the American people themselves. And the only way that they could do this is by not voting." So voting is a really important fundamental right of the United States citizen. Now, these great men fought and made sure that people were able to vote and put it in the Constitution. Now, granted, there were a really long way to include everybody to vote, but they did know that at least voting was important and representation was important. So I want to stress the fact that if you don't vote, your voice won't be heard. Now, why is voting an issue in the United States? In the 2018 election, only 160 million people voted. That is 49.3%. And now this is for a midterm election, but elections are still elections regardless of when and where they are. So only 49% of the eligible citizens voted in the 2018 midterm elections. The highest election voter outcome was 50.4, and that was in 1914. So this is an issue since way back before a lot of people like women and African American and a lot of minority groups were really truly included in the voting process. Now, the 2018 election did show that 11% increase in voting turnout from the 2014 midterm elections, which is a really positive thing. And we have seen that people were happy with the who came out to be voted because they voiced their because they casted their vote. I'm sorry. Now, I want to talk about voting right progress in the United States. I want you to think that this through and make sure that you realize this is a struggle that has been going on for a lot of groups who were not able to vote. So voting rights is not a simple thing. Even though it's easy to vote, all you need to do is register. It took a lot of struggle and activists to do so. So the Voting Right Amendment, the first one was in the 15th Amendment, which was in 1870, and that was to let African American men to vote. Now, granted, there were a lot of barriers and they weren't really truly able to vote, but the Constitution said that they could vote in the 15th Amendment. Now, the second big amendment was the 19th Amendment in 1920. It was ratified in 1920 and it gave women the right to vote. So until 1920, women were not able to vote, and it took a really many years and struggles, the women's suffragist movement, in order for them to be able to vote in the United States. The third one was the 24th Amendment, which was ratified in 1964, and that was to eliminate polls and poll taxes, which were really put there to prevent African American people and poor people not to be able to vote because there were payments to be made. And the last one was the 26th Amendment, which was ratified in 1971, and that was to lower the voting age from 29 to 18. So, who is voting right now? According to the census data, 55% of women voted compared to 52% of men in the last 2018 midterm elections, and the highest voting rate was 65% of women and 68% of men who were ages 65 and older. So the highest group that votes is the older generation. Now, for a younger generation, which is between age 18 and 29, only 38% of women voted and 33% of men voted. So this is really issued specifically for the younger generation who really will be taking on to a lot of offices, and it will be theirs to take the country into. Now, how do we vote and what can we do to vote? There are three options to voting. You can cast your ballot in person. You go to the designated areas in your state and cities to cast your vote. So that is one options, and that can be done either early voting or by mail. Now, the early voting in 39 states, including District of Columbia, you can qualify. You can just go in. There will be a period of voting until the end of election day, so people can go in and early and vote, and they'll be done, and they will go in whenever they can. The second one would be absentee voting, and that is all 17 states in the United States allow you to have the option to be mailed, and then you can vote and mail it back early. And 33 states, including the DC area, allows you to just vote without even an excuse. So the 17% do need a reason why you have to get the mail and vote early, and you won't be able to present your ballot in person. But the other 33 states don't even require that. The mailing option is also a good alternative, which is when you register to vote, you make sure that they get your ballots in the mail. You fill it out and send it back. So that will be your options. This can be automatic. So these laws might be slightly different between each state. So make sure you go to your state voting registration website to get the information. So I got this information from the National Conference of State Legislation. So who can vote in the United States? I'm sorry. U.S. citizens, including the territories like Puerto Rico, can vote. So must be 18 and older, must be resident for the state that they will be casting their vote in, and also register to vote in advance. So one really important thing is to make sure that you register, to make sure that you visit the website, the state's website of voting registration, to make sure what things you need to do before you will be able to vote on election day or prior to that. So registering is really important. In many states, convicted felons may not be able to vote even though they're citizens. So that can be different from state to state. So make sure you visit your state law website. Now I want to end my speech with a quote from Thomas Jefferson, who was one of our founding fathers, and it says, "We do not have government by the majority. We have government by the majority who participate." I really like this quote because it really, really resonates with what's happening right now. If you don't participate, you really are not being represented by the officials. And another quote from Abraham Lincoln said, "Election belongs to the people. It's their decision. If they decide to turn their back on fire and burn their behinds, then they will have to sit on their blisters." So please make sure you vote, and that will be what will be represented. So do you have any questions for me?
Okay. So why do you think people don't vote?
It really depends between, I think your question is why do people not vote? It really baffles me too. But I think a lot of people just don't think their vote really matters. You know, out of millions of people, one vote may not really make a change. But from many, many elections, what we've learned is your one vote can change a lot. So it really is up to the opinions, but I hope I convinced you to vote because it's really important, and a lot of people are not voting. If a lot of people don't vote, there's only like few people that are represented. So thank you.
Thanks.